Hi everybody, welcome back to another video. So this is it, the final video in the series that I have entitled Get Your App Out of My Game. So for those of you that don't know, I've been using my channel for the last 2 or 3 weeks to explore games that have apps in them, app integration, and I've been kind of profiling little games here and there to give you guys a sense of games that have apps involved in them, with the idea of the whole thing being wrapped off with a big final review video, which is this video right here that I've been kind of putting off for a while because I really didn't know what to say. So forewarning, this is going to be more of a rambling video. I usually try to have my videos structured at least a little bit to keep me on task, but I did write down a few basic just notes to hopefully keep this somewhat structured, but be warned, this is probably just going to be a video where I'm going to just be ranting a lot. So getting into it, I want to start off with the title, Get Your App Out of My Game. It's actually a misnomer because it makes it sound like I'm anti-app or I do not like apps. And that's not necessarily the case, which I'll get into as we get into the video. So I want to start off at the top. The phrase, get your app out of my game, I first heard it a long time ago when I first got involved in gaming, 2010, around that time period. When I was talking with someone and I was talking about a new hyped game that was coming out that had an app involved. And I remember the response was, oh, it's got an app. Oh, get your app out of my game. I thought that would be a good title for a video series. But what it did is it made me think of, why do I play games? Now, if I had to write an essay on why I play games, there would be a myriad things, of just many, many chapters. One of the chapters, one of many, would be that I play games to unplug or go analog, which is a term I'm going to use as kind of a blanket term, as no screens, no phones, no tablets, nothing electronic, really just analog. I play games to unplug. So one of the reasons, one of the many reasons in my essay of why I play games. So when I originally started about 10 years ago, yeah, get your app out of my game. This is not what I signed up for. Pen, paper, dice rolling, cards, a cardboard board that you'd lay out, all these analog things, sitting on the table, playing with your friends, unplugging from your phones, not clicking away at a screen, having a laptop out on the table. We're going to play some games, and it's going to be analog. Yeah. But then something switched. Something started to change. And I think I know what one of the factors were. And it's basically this. I'll tell you some stories. I bought a game a while back called Mansions of Madness. It's a Fantasy Flight game. It's the first edition, but at the time it was the only edition, so it was not labeled as the first edition at all, any way, shape, or form. I absolutely hated the game. I spent a lot of money on this game because it's in the Arkham Horror universe, and I like the universe, and I like Arkham Horror based games and the H.P. Lovecraft. I hate it. I probably played Mansions of Madness 1.5 times. The game works where one person doesn't necessarily play. They would be what you would call the DM, and they act as all the monsters, and they are the game, fighting against the players. The setup was terrible. It took hours to set up, and if you got something wrong, if you put a card somewhere for the whatever particular scenario you're playing, you could ruin everything just by accident. Setup took forever. Gameplay was long, not that enjoyable. It was a one versus all thing. I got rid of it. I got rid of it for dirt cheap compared to what I paid for it because I just didn't like it. I just get this thing out of here. Until recently, well, with the last few years or so, there was Mansions of Madness second edition. Oh, second edition. What's that all about? I hated the first game. Oh, it comes with an app that allows you to kind of do this. You don't have to have the Overlord. I think that's what they called it, the Overlord player. Everyone can play, but it's got this app that works in it. An app. Get your app out of my game. I didn't even like the game to begin with. Until something weird happened. I had the money. I wanted an Arkham horror game. I want to try it. I picked it up. Got the app, put it on my tablet, played it. Man, this really makes sense. I really enjoy playing this game because it took all the problems with the first edition and streamlined it all into an app. Now we all can play, and instead of one person having all these rules to remember, flip this card over, tick this tick mark to do this, and remember the round, and add up your power factors and stuff. You can just one click of a button on the app and it just does it all for you and kind of tells you how the game reacts. And then you can move things appropriately. Wow. I was kind of impressed. I was a little bit on the fence, but I was kind of impressed. And then there was another game, a set of games I want to talk about. One of them is called Robinson Crusoe, and the other one is First Martians. Now, the two games, First Martians and Mansions of Madness Second Edition, are both featured on my Get Your App Out of My Game on my channel. But Robinson Crusoe and First Martians play very, very similar. The gameplay is very similar. Robinson Crusoe would have a deck that you would shuffle cards and you would draw a card and that would be your event. What they did with First Martians is that they put it into an app so that you would get your event in the app that would make more neurological sense as to what was going on in your game. See, in Robinson Crusoe, you would just be left to the sake of randomness. However you shuffle the cards, you would draw the top card and okay, something happened. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, narratively speaking, thematically speaking, but that's our event. That's the crummy thing that happens for this turn. In the app is able to kind of track what you're doing, who's playing, what characters you're playing, and create certain events based on what's going on in your game, which gives it more of a thematic sense and a more of a narrative sense, because if you send someone out, they come back, injured, that makes sense because they went out to fight some wild boar and the boar attacked them and they came back and they're injured. That makes more sense than drawing a card and the card says, oh, one of your players is injured, take 2 wounds by a boar. Very random. So between Mansions of Madness and the whole Robinson Crusoe First Martians thing, I started to see that there was a difference. There was a change. I like this. I like this. This is really working out well because it's enhancing the gameplay. It's enhancing the theme, the story, and the entertainment value. Now, a little bit of an aside, very briefly, I actually prefer Robinson Crusoe over First Martians for a whole bunch of reasons that don't pertain to the scope of this video. That has nothing to do with there being an app or not being an app. But I do like Robinson Crusoe a lot. So if you guys think I'm saying that it's no good, it's not. It's a really good game. You should pick it up. It's incredibly difficult. So be prepared to lose like a lot. But yeah, it's a good game. And so between these two things, these two examples that I'm giving, something started to change. And I realized there is some element of apps being in games where I think I can live with. I'm not that 2010 kid or whatever that get your app out of my game. Oh, get your app out of my game. I want to unplug. I think this is done very well or implemented perfectly in cooperative games. Cooperative games is really where it's at. I don't know of a competitive game that has an app. I'm sure there are plenty, but in the cooperative world, I think it's perfect because we all get to take our turns, and then we can just click of a button. The game can do its thing, and it speeds up things. And so I've kind of split this into two categories in my notes here. So board games with apps can really enhance a game by increasing the entertainment factor or streamlining gameplay, or what we call in the gaming community the bookkeeping, which means all the stuff you have to remember. Turn this card to do this. At the end of every round, you have this phase and do blah, blah, blah. You can press a button, and the app just does all that and shows you what happens. And so I'll give some examples of some of these, because I've listed two different areas, kind of a dichotomy here. So the first part of the dichotomy is it enhances the entertainment factor. An example of this would be a game, if you want to call it that. I call it more of an activity, really, called Drop Mix. Now in Drop Mix, you're playing on an electronic board, and you have these cards with chip readers in it, because the board, when you lay it on the board, it'll read the card, and it plays music. And you're basically playing certain parts. You're doing what's called a mashup, and you're trying to make combos to get points. And so you can play the vocals from like a Coldplay song, and then play the bass line from some other song, and like mash these things up, and you get points in the game. It's like I said, you could make a debate on whether if it's a game or not. To me, it's more of an activity. But the point is that, God, it's fun. The fact that it's got an app to it that'll play the song. I have the app on my phone right now that connects to the board, that plays the music. You hear Coldplay singing, you hear the bass line and the drums from Super Freak. It's so fun to hear those things. It enhances the entertainment. If we were just playing music cards, trying to connect red music cards to red music cards in yellow, it'd just be a set collection game, which there are a bunch of other card games that you could find out there that would do the same thing. But the fact that there's an app makes Drop Mix a really fun game, because I get to hear what I'm creating. I'm building this engine of music, of mashing up music, and it's really fun, and I can hear it. Well, you need an app. The app plays the music. It's more of an activity, but there's a place for it, because without it, it would not have the entertainment factor. The entertainment factor is I can bob my head and jam to the tune that I'm creating as I'm scoring points in this game/activity. So there's one example of, hey, an app can just make a game just a hell of a lot more fun and entertaining. The second one that I list is increasing the entertainment factor or streamlining gameplay, which we call bookkeeping. This would be your Mansions of Madness, your cooperative, your heavy thematic cooperative games where there's a lot going on. Robinson Crusoe, First Martians, which has the app, where it just enhances the gameplay because it streamlines everything. You don't have to remember a whole lot. You can just hit a button and everything will continue on. The game will show you, here's what the game does. In a cooperative setting, we can all take our turns around the table, and then the app or game gets to take a turn, and it'll do everything for you. That speeds up the gameplay, it ups the entertainment value, it ups the thematic value because you get more story, and the story is more personalized, and I reference First Martians, how it keeps the events relative to your story, because you can do that with an app, with a little computer program on your tablet or whatever to customize things as opposed to just a random deck of cards. And so I think that's great. Anything that involves adding more theme, more of a narrative structure that makes sense anyways, it's not randomized, makes me think, well, the 2010 person, get your app out of my game. Well, today, I really see a place in this world, in the board game world, where an app can really be beneficial. Now, I've given you some examples. I've given kind of the dichotomy of how these apps can work, what they can do, the entertainment factor, the bookkeeping factor. Having said that, going back to my essay, this essay that I haven't written, by the way, but I play games to unplug. So, as the person that sits in front of you today, 10 years later from that guy that's all, yeah, damn right, get your app out of my game, I'm starting to see a point for it. But that doesn't mean that I want to see it all the time. There are certain elements that I've already discussed and certain factors that I've already discussed that really, an app is where it's at. It really makes the game what it is. Mansions of Madness first edition was absolute rubbish until the app came along and they made a second edition. And now I love it and I enjoy playing it. It's on my shelf and I play it and I want to buy some expansions for it and I want to see more scenarios and get more stuff for it. I would have never imagined that with the first edition. I hated that game so much. I was so frustrated that I spent a crap ton of money on a game that's just like, I don't like this. It's too complicated. It's too this, that, and the other thing. It saved the game because it took care of all of these things. So, in summation, I think there is a spot in the board gaming world. Yes, we all can be as hipsterish and analog driven as we want to be and say, get your app out of my game. Okay, I play games to unplug, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you know what? I do too. It's one of the 100 reasons why I play games. But if it makes sense and if it brings out something in the game, I think that there's a place in the board gaming world for apps. It's not for everyone. It's not for every game. It's got to have those factors that I already mentioned. But I think the person that sits here today, as opposed to close to 10 years ago, has definitely gone through some experiences, positive experiences, where apps have really changed my mind on a game. And so, to kind of sum it up, apps are here to stay. They're going to be making more games that have apps. Hopefully, they meet the requirements that I've already talked about. So when I say get your app out of my game, I do think that there are some games, yeah, I want to unplug. I want to get away from a screen. And there are plenty of games out there for me to do that. But then there are some games that I wouldn't play without the app, like Mansions of Madness. Wouldn't play it without the app. So, those are my thoughts, just ramblings. I'm going to close out the video. I am actually curious about this whole topic and what gamers think about it. And so, if you want to drop a comment or get a hold of me or whatever you want to do, let me know, because I am actually curious. What do other people think? What do you guys think about apps? Are there certain prerequisites, like I've already talked about, for games that have apps? Or should there be no apps at all? We should just, get your app out of my game. I want to unwind and unplug. Or is there a world where they both can kind of coexist? At the moment, speaking very plainly to you, I think that there is that world. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching this completely off the cuff random video. And I will see you guys at the next video. Thanks for watching.